Yo, what up guys, I'm Sammy and welcome back to the Soul Drop. And this is my performance review of a barefoot basketball shoe. So this is a first for me. So a couple of years ago when I started, like my knees started to hurt a little bit and also my ankles. Since I am getting older, I heard, if you wear barefoot shoes and train in them, it does help a lot to strengthen all that up. And then I started wearing barefoot shoes, right? And then just like working out, which I like to do. Running, not so much, but just walking around, working out, squatting and stuff like that, doing lunges, doing like plyometrics on like the turf, as I like to use barefoot shoes for that, right? But I also tried playing in the barefoot shoes a couple of times because I was just like too lazy to switch out the shoes, you know what I mean? So I was like, just playing these, just a quick game, whatever. And when I did that, I hurt my arch really bad. You know what I mean? Like really, really bad, to the point where it's just like I strained it really, like it just hurt, you know what I mean? Just to walk around, and it hurt for like a couple days, pretty bad. And then, I rehabbed it, I rested it, and never really had that problem since. But I never balled in barefoot shoes again. I was like, I'm not gonna do that again, right? But then Xero comes out and makes a basketball shoe about it. So I was like, okay, I'll check it out. You know what I mean? So this is the Xero X1. It retails. So this is the X1 Low. They also have a mid top. I don't know how it's a mid top. It looks like a high top shoe to me. But anyways, this low is ridiculously expensive. I was like, how is it that price? That just doesn't make sense. You know what I mean? But yeah, it's $160 for this shoe. $160. And then you add $10 more, you can get the mid top. It's $170 for the mid-top X1, which is insane. So yeah, if you guys do want to cop, I try to leave a link in the description box. But yeah, let's get started off with the Traction. So in this colorway, we have it's translucent, but it's not super icy. It's more like a yellow. It has like a yellow hue to it. You know what I mean? Most translucent rubbers are like more icy, like has that like blue tints to it. But this is more like creamy. You know what I mean? It's more like a yellow, milkier hue to it. But anyways, we have a herringbone traction pattern pretty much. We also have these flex grooves, right? So it helps flex the shoe without putting too much stress on the rubber, where it can kind of like break, you know what I mean? And also it says Xero here in kind of like the midfoot area, right? So how's the traction? So if you're playing on a clean court, it actually has a pretty solid bite, you know what I mean? So I did like that. But rarely do I play on super clean courts, you know what I mean? The only super clean court I play on is like an LA Fitness court where there's a guy that actually cleans it. And it's like a dry mop as well. So it's not super duper clean, but it's actually pretty dang clean. But he actually hasn't been there for a while. I haven't seen him cleaning there for the past like couple months, which kind of sucks. So it's actually been kind of dusty in there, you know what I mean? But anyways, if you're playing on a clean court, yeah, this has a solid bite, right? Also, this shoe has pretty much zero squeak, which kind of sucks, you know what I mean? Of course, squeak has nothing to do with performance, of course, but if you like to have a nice squeak in your hoop shoes like me, this shoe is not squeaky at all. But also, yeah, on dust, it is a huge disappointment. It's a dust magnet, right? So I was playing alongside the JB3s, which is a top tier performer for the traction. It's just so good for the traction. I was playing alongside the 808 5 Ultra. I was playing alongside the Kai 2s. And just, of course, that was just like my backup. And also those are the shoes that I'm testing, in my rotation. And all those shoes were biting really well, right? So I had no issues with those. But then I switched into these and it just started sliding around a good amount. You know what I mean? And it wasn't terrible to the point where it's just like I was sliding around dangerously. I actually appreciated how much it didn't slide out dangerously. You know what I mean? It just doesn't have a good bite. But also, no matter how much I wiped, it's just really freaking annoying to wipe off the dust off this outsole, right? So I really wipe it off. And then I have like one good stop and then it just picks up dust really freaking fast again. So just like even on a lightly dusty court, it's still like, it's okay. You know what I mean? It's like good, okay. It's not, actually I wouldn't say it's good. It's okay, you know what I mean? So lightly dusty court, it was annoying, you know what I mean? But then if you're playing on a super dusty court, moderate to dust, super dusty, you're gonna be sliding around a lot and you really can't even wipe off the dust. Or I couldn't at least, you know what I mean? It was just super freaking annoying. So yeah, that kind of sucks. You know, and also I guess we'll get into like the cushion, how the shoe feels overall later in the video, but just like I also really needed to be careful playing in the shoe, you know what I mean? But anyways, that kind of sucked. It was just a not great performer on dust, right? As far as the outdoor use goes, right, for durability, you should be fine. The grooves or the rubber is really hard. The grooves are thick and also very, very deep. So you should be fine on an outdoor court. But that's insane. Playing on an outdoor court with barefoot shoes, your feet it's gotta be super duper strong. Right? I couldn't do that, you know, but anyways, there's a traction there, a little bit disappointing, you know? And now moving on to the heel to toe transition, I can't heel to toe transition, you know what I mean? Because there is no heel cushion, right? So, I mean, I could do it a little bit because there is a tiny bit of cushion comparing it to their other kind of like barefoot shoe, you know what I mean? Like their other barefoot shoe, there's zero cushion. It literally just feels like your foot and then a very thin, super thin insole which doesn't do anything, and then just rubber. You know what I mean? But with this, there's a little bit of cushion, so I can heel strike a little bit, but it just doesn't feel good. You know, it hurts my heel when I do that. So I mean, it doesn't feel clunky at all, but you just like imagine running down the court like on a hardwood surface. You know what I mean? With your heels. That you shouldn't be doing that. You know what I mean? Like if you actually run barefoot, you should be striking with your midfoot or your forefoot. You know what I mean? And also with the invention of the modern shoe, right? Sneakers, they have cushion, and because of that, we have adapted to heel striking, of course, when we jog, right? Especially just running down the court. But yeah, it just felt really weird, and I needed to change how I do things a little bit, you know what I mean, playing in the shoe. So yeah, again, heel, not super nice. Coming here into the forefoot, it's kind of weird because they're trying to mimic, you know, like a barefoot shape, you know what I mean? So this is more supposed to be like a really flat shape, but it actually has a little bit of a curve, just a tiny bit. But yeah, of course, look, there's no torsion support, and you do have a very flexible shoe, which yeah, I mean, if you need arch support or like your feet aren't super strong, you know what I mean, like if you're not training your feet by wearing, you know, barefoot shoes or just like walking barefoot in general, which I feel like no one does, it's gonna be pretty hard. It's a pretty hard change, you know what I mean, to go with, you know. So yeah, there's really no heel to toe transition. It's more for like just midfoot, forefoot, or just landing in your forefoot. You know what I mean? Because it is a barefoot basketball shoe with very minimal cushion. So yeah, it's just a really interesting feel. You know what I mean? But anyways, there's that. Moving on to the cushioning setup, there's no cushion. Or I mean, there is a little bit, you know what I mean? So like I said, if you've tried any type of barefoot shoe, it's just rubber, very thin insole, and then your foot. You know what I mean? So there's no cushion. In this setup, of course, first of all, the insole is extremely thin, so it sucks. So that doesn't add anything to the like stepping comfort. But then underneath that, we actually have like a little bit of some, just a tiny bit. You know what I mean? Just enough to where when I'm heel striking, like or doing heel dominant strides on the court, it absorbs a tiny bit of impact, but still hurts a little bit. You know what I mean? But I think this is like the most minimal amount of cushion that you can have before it gets a little dangerous, in my personal opinion, right? So yeah, this is just my personal opinion, of course. I mean, like, I think, of course, this is getting back to the roots of like what you're supposed to be doing, right? With your body, with your feet, with your ankles and stuff like that, of course, right? But basketball is a very demanding sport. You know what I mean? And you need, in my personal opinion, you need support. Like, you need support in the overall bottom of the shoe, of course. But also you need cushion, you know, because you're just like, you're jumping as high as you can. You know what I mean? If you're doing that multiple times and you're tired, you can heel strike. And if you heel strike, you're done. You know what I mean? It hurts. You're out. You know what I mean? No, you're not out. It hurts though when you heel strike, of course. So impact protection, of course, is not great. Also in the forefoot, not great. And obviously you're supposed to be landing in the forefoot, but you can't do that every single time, you know? And if you're just landing repeatedly, you know, throughout the day, you know what I mean? And you're playing really, really hard. Maybe you're playing a league game or something, you know, or you're playing for a team. in my personal opinion, I think you need that cushion. You need cushion. At least a little bit more than this, you know, especially for impact protection. I guess the good thing about this shoe is the core feel. You can't get any better than this. It has the best core feel that you can get right now. In any shoe, I guess, you know. But that's it. You know what I mean? Step-in comfort, underfoot cushion, not that nice. Impact protection, not nice, you know? So yeah, I think it's just like, for me, how I would do it is like I worked out in this. You know what I mean? I worked out a lot. I was walking around doing, you know, plyo and stuff like that on the turf, which is way softer than just concrete, or also like the wood floor, you know? Also, I was squatting and stuff like that. So that helped, you know? Also, I was doing like very light, you know what I mean? Because of my past experience with barefoot shoes, I couldn't, you know what I mean? Because first of all, I was scared to injure myself, but also like I just needed to like adapt a little bit and get used to playing in this. And once I got used to it, it did get better and didn't feel terrible, but it just didn't feel as supportive, and also just not as like nice as I would like, you know, especially for the cushioning setup. But again, like if you are one of those people where you are training your feet and your feet are very strong, then yeah, of course, this does have a little bit more cushion than barefoot shoes. And I think it would be just enough cushion for you guys and you'll be fine. But I feel like for the rest of the world, for pretty much most everyone else, this is not the best option. You know what I mean? So there is the cushioning setup there. Moving on to the upper. So the upper is actually pretty nice on foot. You know what I mean? It's extremely thin. Look at this. It's super duper soft. It still feels a little bit cheap, a little bit flimsy as well, especially for $160. I mean, are you serious? You know what I mean? But yeah, we do have good airflow. Ventilation is good. But also we do have this, you know, kind of like synthetic material going around the tip of the toe, which it adds a little bit of support, just a tiny bit, but it does add to the durability, right? So yeah, it conforms with my foot extremely well, which I do like, and it does feel overall pretty supportive. You're not super duper sturdy, not super duper supportive, but it doesn't stretch, which does have a little bit more of a like sturdier feel, you know? Also here on the sides, we have this kind of like rubberized plastic, which helps a little bit. But yeah, it's around the same, maybe a little bit stiffer than the toe box, right? The tongue also has zero padding pretty much. There's just a tiny bit of padding on top of the tongue, you know, so like the laces don't cut into the top of your foot. It's also kind of like a half booty construction tongue, but it's like it comes way up here, more like it's almost like a one booty, almost, you know. And then here in the ankle area, of course, we have very minimal padding as well, and also just like a really thin, really freaking thin internal TPU heel counter. So yeah, it's a really minimal feel. Also, I feel like it's adequate in support, which I do like, you know what I mean? So I feel like they did it pretty well, although it does feel pretty cheap, especially for the price, right? So there's that. Moving on to the fit. So I went true to size, and this shoe fits me pretty well. I mean, of course, with barefoot shoes, like most barefoot shoe companies, they have a very wide toe box, which is supposed to be way better for the overall health of your foot. You know what I mean? You want to spread your toes out so you can feel your foot, and also with doing that, it's supposed to engage like your arch and stuff like that a little bit better than cramping your feet in like a really narrow toe box, right? So that's good. And also if you compare it to like every single other, like not even just basketball shoe, but every other shoe or sneaker in general, it's just way wider. You know, if you look at the GT Cut 3, it's just really narrow, right? It is also pretty roomy here in the toe box, which I don't like. You know what I mean? Like with the wide toe box, I'm fine with that. You know what I mean? Like I don't mind that as long as my foot doesn't move inside of the shoe this much. You know what I mean? But with a roomy toe box, your foot, or my foot at least, when I'm doing crazy lateral movements, like hard lateral movements, it just kind of moves diagonally inside of the shoe like this. It's wide toe box with the roomy toe box, you know what I mean? So not a huge fan of that. I wish it was a little bit more snug here in the toe box. Lengthwise also, I went true to size, and there's a little bit of length, you know what I mean? Just a tiny bit. I feel like that's because there's zero padding here, like in the back of the shoe. If you look at every other hoop shoe on the market pretty much right now, there's a good amount of padding here, right? So all that padding, it just kind of pushes your foot forward a little bit, and just helps with the length a little bit, right? But since there's no padding, right, there is a little bit of length. So if you want to be super snug for length, then maybe go down half a size, right? But I feel like for most people, you should be fine going true to size. I didn't really mind it too much. For the length, it's just I didn't really like the roomier toe box, right? So there is the fit there. Moving on to the support and lockdown, right? So I guess if you're talking about lateral containment, I was good to go. My foot is not coming out of the footbed at all. And it feels very supportive for that, which is good. You know what I mean? I didn't think it would be amazing, but actually I didn't really mind it at all. Especially with the really thin internal TPU heel cutter. That's just a really soft, look at this. Super soft material here, but I didn't really have any issues with that, right? Also, as far as the lateral stability goes, you don't need an outrigger because it's literally a barefoot shoe. You have no height pretty much. You know, it's zero drop as well. So yeah, if you're low to the ground, you really don't need a very, very wide base. You know what I mean? So yeah, lateral stability felt good. Overall, heel lockdown was really good. I had zero issues with like lockdown for the overall shoe besides, I guess, the roomy toe box, which kind of, that was a little bit annoying. You know what I mean? But also, again, I felt my foot straining a little bit, you know, when I was playing, especially like out of the first step when I was doing like hard movements. I was like, ooh, I need to chill a little bit. I don't want to go too hard. And it's probably because my foot and my feet strength isn't up to par, you know what I mean? But yeah, I don't want to be worrying about that too much, right? So there is the support and lockdown there. Moving on to the weight, right? So they're saying this shoe is extremely lightweight, and it freaking better be because there's literally no cushion. You know, it's literally just rubber and upper, which they're selling for $160, which is kind of insane. You know, but yeah, 10.75 ounces, extremely lightweight. Let's check the other shoe. 10.75 ounces, right? So the average weight of my shoes is around 12.5 ounces. So yeah, being in the 10 ounce range is extremely lightweight, right? But it's still freaking heavier than the Wade Flash, right? The Wade Flash, the Adizero Select 2.0, the Ultralight 2025, right? Actually, the Ultralight 2025 is like 8 ounces, you know what I mean? I really don't know how they made that shoe 8 ounces, you know, but 8 ounces, 10.7 ounces, and those shoes have a freaking foam midsole. So why is this shoe so freaking heavy? Like, it should, in my personal opinion, it should be like 8 ounces, right? 8-9 ounces. Why is it so freaking heavy? Like, there's no foam. You know what I mean? Maybe the foam density here is just high, right? Maybe that adds to the weight. I don't know. Like, again, 10.75 ounces is extremely light, but if you take into account all the other freaking shoes out there that are just super lightweight, this isn't even the lightest shoe that you can get right now, right? Again, Wade Flash, Adizero Select, and the Ultralight 2025 are all lighter than the shoe, so, or if not the same weight, you know what I mean? So yeah, that kind of is weird to me. I don't know how that happened, but yeah, again, it's extremely light, extremely minimal, especially for the upper, and it feels like you don't have a shoe on because that's literally what it's meant to be for. It's a barefoot shoe, and that's nice. But I couldn't really play in this shoe without worrying too much. You know what I mean? Because it's just like I didn't want to hurt myself. You know, and again, when I found myself trying to go really hard, I had to pull myself back a little bit. Also, again, that could be because my feet aren't as strong as I want it to be. But I feel like that's most people. And I feel like also my feet may be a little bit stronger than most people because I do wear barefoot shoes when I do work out. You know what I mean? It's not like it's super weak like it used to be, you know? So yeah, that kind of sucked, you know? And then moving on to the aesthetics, it grew on me. It looks okay, but yeah, it looks kind of generic and also kind of cheap, especially with this upper, you know what I mean? And it being $160, that just doesn't make sense, you know? So tell us what you guys think of the aesthetics down in the comment section below. So wrapping things up, yeah. So is this shoe for everyone? No. And should everyone play in this shoe? I mean, okay, so I feel like, you know, if you, again, have really strong feet and you train your feet, or you do want to train your feet and you want to kind of like start slow, of course, start slow if you can, then I feel like it's good. You know what I mean? But in my personal opinion, I feel like you just need cushion. You know what I mean? Again, because there can be accidents. And if you're going as hard as you can, you're playing in like a league, or you're playing for a team, and you're going as hard as you can, of course, putting your body on the line. Don't you want like shoes, like equipment that's supposed to support you through all those movements a little bit? You know what I mean? In my personal opinion, I feel like this would be more of like a practice type of shoe, where you kind of practice your moves, and you don't want to go too hard, and you strengthen your feet. And then once it's game time, you would want to wear like a shoe that has a little bit more of that cushion, a little bit more support, in my personal opinion, of course. You know what I mean? That's what I would do, you know? But if you are looking for a barefoot shoe, this is pretty dang nice. Again, but also the thing is, the dust performance was not that good. You know, it was a dust magnet, which kind of sucked. I was sliding around a good amount, you know? So if you are looking for a barefoot shoe, and you wouldn't mind playing this type of kind of feel, you know what I mean? Then you'll probably like the shoe, but also, again, be careful of the dust, right? But anyways, did I like playing in the shoe? Actually, not that much. You know, again, I need to hold back. I couldn't really go as hard as I wanted to. So anyways, that about concludes my performance review of the Xero X1 Low. Again, if you guys do want to cop it, try to leave a link in the description box. But that's it. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.